In part 2 of this bodged XT500, we're really going to start digging down into what can only be described as crap work done by the previous owner. This is diabolical.
While going over the bike today, I noticed that we've actually got an engine bolt missing. I mean, who puts a bike together and sells it in the full knowledge that you've got a bolt missing? This guy that had this before was a complete muppet. So what I'm actually going to do, I've got some steel rodding, which is a perfect fit for this. So I'm going to cut that to length and then tap the ends, nuts and bolts on that to replace that. But anyway, part of the ongoing saga of buying a bike off an idiot.
So I've made a new frame bolt, engine bolt, to go in the XT. Basically took a piece of rodding, threaded it either end, and we'll fit that now.
And that's it, new bolt in place.
I don't think I'm going to get this running in the course of this part 2 video. I need some parts to order, so when I took the oil filter cover off, I thought that was like a paper gasket in there because there was so much silicone. That actually isn't. There's a rubber gasket in there, so obviously somebody's put the silicone to stop that leaking, so I would guess a new rubber gasket because that's been flattened too much. Looks like it's a 64mm inner, 72 outer, but they're probably a standard that I can buy for that. I also need some sump gaskets. I'm going to get a few of each of these because I've got some other XT500s. So sump gasket, new one of those required. I used up my last float bowl gasket, so I'll get a few of those in. And some of the other parts I need also was the drain bowl. Sorry, that there. There's a rubber washer underneath the bowl drain bolt, and some oil filters. I've used up the last of my oil filters, so I'm going to order some of those in. So jobs I'm going to get on with now, I'm going to start looking at electrics, working out why there is some extra wiring put in. As we can see, we've got this black and red which runs what looks like, when I look underneath, right the way to the tail light, and it goes all the way through to the headlight bowl. So not quite sure what that's been put in for, whether that's just a continuous earth or something like that that's been put in because of earthing issues on a 6-volt electric system, which is kind of common. But I'm sure we can do a better job of just whatever this is. It's almost bell wire. I mean, it's, well, stolen it off of a set of connectors, black and red. Also have a look at the exhaust. I mentioned it in the last video, which is whatever this gold piece of wrap is around here, whether that's a connecting joint or a just a heat shield for the plastic underneath there. So as I go around and finding other things, I'll put those on video and see what other parts I need to order. I've swapped the clocks over, so now we've got access to this where it should be. Rerouted the cables and also the main rev counter cable and speedo cables as well. Their routing was a bit odd. I'm going to do another bit of cable routing. So this clutch cable here runs the wrong side of that light bowl. It needs to go in through there, and that'll actually be a straighter line through. So I'll do that now. And then next is start looking at the wiring. Now, maybe the issue I'm going to have here is because you can't kind of really test out the wiring unless the bike's running. The lights don't work until the bike is running. So I'm probably going to have to do it all through continuity tests, get a wiring diagram printed off and just work through, cut off some of the outer cabling and tape that's been put onto the loom here, just to track and trace where it all goes and why that black and red line has been put in there, because that should be within the cable loom there instead of it a separate one. So more evidence of what a muppet the previous guy was. The red and black wire that goes to the rear light is actually taken by what looks like just a push fit wire connection into the back of the main beam headlights. So rather than wiring it into the loom and tracking and tracing where the feed is at the rear end, let's just push it into the connectors. I mean, what? My God. What a complete idiot. Okay, so we're going to have some wiring gremlins to look at by the look of it. More signs of a bodger at work, and I don't mean me. I've never seen this before. So I've just taken the rear light lens, and I was kind of like taken by surprise because something fell out. Another bulb. I mean, what the is this? It looks as though, because that's a single filament bulb, they've wired in to that black and red, there we go, which is connected to the front light, so that they've got a permanent rear light, or at least they think they've got a permanent rear light, because the front light on this doesn't work unless the bike is running. So obviously that rear light doesn't work. Now that also makes me think that the brake light doesn't work, because this is a double filament bulb, which is your usual rear light brake light. So I'm guessing brake light doesn't work, rear light system doesn't work, so some muppet has put a connector and hung it literally in there for a rear light. Oh well, you know, they're a whiz at electrics, aren't they? Right, so I'm going to work out what this is, or what's going on. I've already started to strip the cable apart, get all the outer off of it so I can track and trace. My start point is going to be coming out of the alternator on the other side. Is it the other side? Whatever side. Points and alternator basically will be my start point. That's where my power source is. I'm going to track it through up to headlight bulb up there, and hopefully this colour scheme here is original, that I can trace some of this according to the wiring diagram, but I'm not holding out much hope. One small plus point, I've got a battery wired up. At least the neutral light works. One small light at the end of the tunnel. Working from the back, what I've discovered is there was a loose wire just with it taped into the loom. I've discovered that is actually direct to the negative battery, so that's an earth wire which hadn't been connected up, and when I put a meter across just this frame to earth, there was no continuity, so that light was probably never going to work anyway, because the bulb is relying on the outside of it to be actually earthed. So that's now just got that at the moment clipped up for it, and the next path was to try and track what is the power source for this rear. Now the rear light and indicator should work on this when the bike is switched off. It's the headlight that doesn't work, that has the direct power feed. So at the moment I'm just concentrating on the rear. So I'll follow that through. The two wires coming out from the bulb marked up here. The blue one is the rear light, the yellow is the brake light, which have been wired into. Blue becomes white, yellow stays yellow. So I've followed that through after stripping out a lot of the loom. We can see the white following all the way through the loom, and it actually comes out in here. I'll find the right one. It was okay, it goes into this connector here. Now the bar switches, so I've got an on-off button here, and I've currently got a battery connected to the loom, and if I switch this on, I do have a neutral light switch, so I know there's continuity through most of, well, through some of the loom, let's say, to that. So what I needed to find out was what got power when I actually switch this on. And what I've determined is that by looking at the wiring diagram, coming out of this switch is a blue and white wire, which is this one here, and this gains power when it or should gain power, but it's not going to gain anything because it's been cut off. So that should be where I need to wire my white wire that has come through from the rear to make that a full circuit for the rear when the bike is not switched on. I've yet to investigate what this white wire is. It appears when I look at the wiring diagram to be the high-low off of the high-low switch on the same unit, which implies also that I've got a main feed. One of these yellows into this is going to be the feed direct from the alternator for the front light, and therefore through this switch for the high-low to feed that white. So a little bit more to do to just suss out the front lights, but I believe if I connect this up to the white wire that's coming from the rear, I should have a permanent rear, and then I just need to work out the brake light switch. There isn't fitted on this a front brake light switch. I do have a spare somewhere, which I'll see if I can get wired into this, but there is a brake light switch on the right hand side that I need to check out where the feed for that is coming from. So a little bit more investigation to do. So what I've done just for the moment, temporarily connected that white wire, which leads all the way to the back of the bike, to the blue and white. And now we've got ignition on at the moment and a neutral light showing. And if we switch over on this to the on at the back there, you can see it. There we go. Okay, so I've solved the issue of the wiring for the rear light, but my next challenge is working on the brake light switch. So here we are at the wires coming from the brake light switch, which I've untaped some solders so I can directly connect and mimic the switch there. By doing that, I've now got a brake light on, connected to the battery. My neutral light has dimmed a little bit. Currently, my lights are switched off. If I switch those on, back over here, I have got just a little glimmer coming through on the second filament. Difficult to see. Let's get the angle right. And also the brake light one has dimmed. So that's quite a draw on that bulb anyway. The brake light filament is a heavier one and does have a much larger draw. So I'm kind of assuming that I haven't got any losses through the system, but when the bike is running, there will be more feed to this. At the moment, I'm literally just running off the battery. So we should have both filaments alight when the brake is applied. Right, I thought I'd turn my attention to the front light because I'm just trying to track and trace what's going on with the wiring. So I'd taken the light bulb out earlier. It's got a 3-pin 12 volt, what looks like halogen bulb in it. So, oh, okay, where's the clip that holds that in? No. What a complete muppet. You are effing useless. What is that? Silicon holding a bulb in. This is just a catalogue of absolutely crap workmanship. If this is your level of mechanicking, I mean, that's actually not even silicon, it's some sort of solid glue that you just wedge this into. Look. Oh, so in earlier segments I was looking into tracking and tracing what the headlight arrangement was on this particular bike. Normally, as I've said before, the headlight runs off of the power from the alternator. So we've got down here the alternator wires. There's actually 4 wires here. One of them is your neutral light switch, and then you've got in this case a black, white and yellow coming out. I think the wiring diagram says this is a black and white. Doesn't really matter too much, but what I've done is looked at how that connects to all the new wiring that's been put into this and followed it through. What I've also noted, and I've said earlier, is that this has got a combined regulator rectifier fitted to it. Usually what this will have, regulator rectifier for the battery charge and also for the rear lighting, and I believe the indicators, and the front light is powered by direct AC off of the alternator, so coming through this. And what I can see from this is that the main power source that heads up to the front light actually now comes from this regulator rectifier. So this red wire here, if I track and trace it, heads up to the headlight unit and effectively the on-off switch. So if I head up to the headlight unit, what I've got going on in here, what a rat's nest, is the red wire with some crap soldering coming into my switch loom, which is this one. Coming out of that, once it's switched on, is the brown. So the brown becomes your positive throughout this bike. And what I can see is that that brown is actually wired into this 12 volt headlight unit, which is the one that was glued into the back of the bulb. So what they've done is removed the AC power source that was a direct feed for the front light and put it on the same feed as the rear light and battery charge, which is no big deal really. They may have had some issues with blowing bulbs and they've decided to go down that route, but it works. So what I can do is give a quick demonstration of that. So if I go to the back, and just here we will see, is that one there? Let me switch on. At the moment I've got a 6 volt battery connected to this, so I'm going to switch on the lighting, or the ignition and the lighting, with no bulb in the front. So there we have rear light on. And what I'm going to do is plug a 12 volt, because that's all I've got at the moment, that will fit that connector until I swap this over to be the proper connector. But what you'll see is a little dim glow, there we go, because it's a 12 volt bulb on a 6 volt circuit. And then if I flip this to be the high or low beam, whichever, high beam, there we go, there's the other one as well. So what I've done there is proved that this whole system now runs from the battery circuits, and the charge, coming back down to here, the charge system is now fed through this condenser. Let's get that into shot. Through this condenser. So what I'm going to do is sort out all the bad connections that it's done and then get this all taped back up, because I do believe it's a functioning lighting system. I know the ignition works, I tried all that, you'll see it in an earlier video, it was a good juicy spark, but I'll have to check that I haven't messed around with any connections as a result of that. So on this XT we saw that the previous owner, supposed mechanic, had glued in the light. So what I'll do is just take this glue out. It's coming out surprisingly easy. and this is the new connector I got from Bertram's Bike Bits. I'm not sponsored by him, but he has got a lot of good parts. So you want to find him on eBay, loads of good stuff. And the way that these connectors fit in is there isn't like a clip or anything like that. It's held by the rear rubber. So this just sits in there. And what you have to do is hook the rubber over the whole lip. There we go. So that's how it used to fit. So now I can get a bulb fitted to that. So let's find a 6 volt. There we go. 6 volt. And these pegs and slots on the front of that. So just push that down onto it, turn it into the slots. Bulb is a nice tight fit through there. Okay. There we go. And we'll get I've got some new ones of those, so we'll fit the auxiliary light as well. So I'm moving on to a couple of other jobs while I'm waiting for some parts to come round. So with the kickstand on, it comes round far too far, pointing forward, leaning right over on the bike, and the actual platform on the bottom isn't flat on the floor. So what I've done, I've ground this off. There was already some welding on it. This piece here should be extending out a little bit further, so that when the stand comes round, it props onto this. So what I'm going to do is weld in this gap here, and then create an extra on that kind of little foot there as well. And while I'm at it, at the back of the stand, that's got a groove in it as well. So I'll just grind that out to get it fresh, and put a weld in there and create a little kind of fixed spot where it sits on. So add a bit to this, add a bit to this. That should bring this round so that the foot sits square on the ground. Now while I'm at it, what I've noticed is, for some strange reason, they've also welded on this extra bolt, whatever this is for. It was actually, as it was set up, had the spring attached to it. Now this is actually the spring fixing, and they had the wrong spring on as well, so I've ordered a new spring. So we'll get that done, and it will make the stand a lot more secure. That's far enough out. Let's see where that goes. Put the bolt back in. So that's now a lot more square to the floor than it was. It was up over here, and just this back part was touching the floor. Moving on to the right hand side, on this side the foot peg is pointing forwards. Let's kind of look at that from above if we can. There we go. And the reason for that is quite a lot of wear, it would seem, on the stop part of it just in here. And as you can see, yet another bodge. Look at this, with a bit of twisted wire holding that on. Obviously hasn't got any split pins or can't afford to buy any. Thanks mate. So what I'm going to do is pop that out again and just do a little bit of weld in there. So I've actually cut it off, there we go. So as we can see in there, it's quite well worn. So I'll just put a bit of weld in there, that's kind of worn into a hollow, to get that out, and that will straighten up the foot peg. There we go, job done. Peg straightened out, proper split pin put back into it. And on to the next bodge job. Let's have a look what's behind this, which I first thought might be a heat shield, but as you can see, if I move the exhaust, no, that's supposed to be an exhaust joint. Oh my god. Anyway, right, let's have a look what's behind it. So we'll pull the exhaust right off. So, and we'll get that, I'll just get that undone, and then see what this fitment is, whether this exhaust is actually too short. And he's also tried to extend it with a bit of tin can. Okay, let's offer that back up. Ah, so it does actually fit over. It's not too short. It just needs maybe more of a cut put in. Oh, I can see in there. Yeah, the cut down there doesn't quite reach that header pipe. So it's going to leak around that bit there. So let's have a think about this. You'll obviously be able to clamp it up. What I'll do is put another small cut in here so that it can clamp up, because obviously a Jubilee clip isn't enough to pull this up. And then I'll have a think about what to do at this part. It might just be that I can put a little bit of spot weld on those pieces there to fill that, because the clamp here will be enough once I've put the small cut here. On the other side of it, you know, the cut is smaller, it just needs more of these up to that point, and then clamp that up onto there. Failing that, I know I've got somewhere some exhaust, those kind of fibrous large washers that fit in there. That might be an option that I can put one on there, because although it's quite a tight tolerance already, yeah, I don't think I'll get one in there. But let's try cutting it, weld that small one up, and that should do. Okay,
We'll see if that fits, and then use a bit of paste around it as well. That should pull up with a decent clip around that now. There we go. No gaps anymore. The inner tube comes up to just past those slots, so I just need to find a decent clamp now that's strong enough to pull that up, and with a bit of exhaust paste I can just pull that up nice and tight, and that'll be sorted. We are ready for the first try at getting it started. New oil filter is in, sump is back on. I've also cleaned out the mesh filter that's in the bottom of the frame there. Carb is back on, bolted up to the engine. Leads are all plugged in on the other side where I've had them apart, so we should have power to the coil, I'm assuming. I haven't checked the plug this time, but we'll give it a go. A few little strange noises. I've just adjusted the throttle stop screw so that it will tick over. See, all my oil is burning off the exhaust. Sounds okay. Still need to sort the clamp here. I haven't done that yet. I am relieved. That is the first time I've had it run, so after all that work I didn't know if the thing ran. It seems to. Need to get the airbox back in, try and get it so that it ticks over nicely, and clean it. Right, the next section might be a bit noisy, so I'll do some commentary now. What I'm actually proving is that the regulator rectifier that's been installed and taken out the single regulator for the front light actually works. So amongst all of this rat's nest, what I've got connected up
is the regulator rectifier, obviously, and also a meter down here to see what the output is. And as we're running it, what we'll also see is the lights as well. So just over here, front light bulb, and we'll get this running, so no battery, and we'll see what it puts out voltage wise. And it shouldn't be any more than 7 volts, something like that, because this is only a 6-volt system, so we don't want it to fry the bulbs. So let's get it started, and then we'll have a watch and see what this is putting out. So that's successful. So what I'm going to do now is basically get all of this taped back up, and then we're just about done on this one. A decent clean, sort out just a little few wiring connectors up here, terminate a few, this is for the indicators, and tape a few up that have been left soldered and open because of me tearing things apart. And then we're ready. I'm going to end this video here and do a part 3 once I've got all the loom all taped up again, battery back in it, headlight in it properly, and then just run through all the jobs that we've had to do on this. This has been a disaster from whoever, well, I know who did it, I've mentioned it earlier in the video, but the quality of work has just been shocking. And I did mention the names and where he's from earlier in the video. Don't ever buy anything from the guy